really carefully done. And I thought that it was the kind of sort of three-dimensional chess that I'm not sure he's capable of.
You know, Donnie, the contrast was, I mean, I think of three moments. I mean, I could think of more, actually, because there were really striking moments on both sides. But all of these moments really set the contrast for Americans in terms of what they want in a leader. And I think about Kamala Harris inviting people to go to a Trump rally, telling the viewers that, you know, you're going to hear a lot of lies. But what you're not going to hear is anything about you. Not one idea, not one plan of what he's going to do for you. And then she talked about her career in service and how she always considers herself Kamala Harris for the people. And when she was representing someone, she didn't care whether they were a Democrat or a Republican. She didn't ask, are you that? She asked, are you okay? And then finally, if you needed more, the comment about the eating of pets.
Yeah, the eating of pets will live on. You know, I want to go back to his post-debate spin that he won the debate. And I wonder, I wish we need a Morning Joe medical correspondent on today to really get inside the brain. I wonder if it works this way with him. Does he know he lost, and then he says, okay, I'm going to lie and spin it the other way? Or does he immediately go to, because he can't stand ever losing at anything, does he kind of just, does his brain transfix and he actually believes it? I'm really curious. Now, I don't know which one is worse, but I'm really curious to be inside of his head. The other thing to learn is interesting. I had our friends Katty Kay and Anthony Scaramucci on my podcast the other day after the debate, and the Mooch brought up a really interesting point, and this may be one of the reasons he doesn't want to debate again. He didn't land in Philadelphia on his plane until 6:57, 2 hours before the debate. Imagine that. You're debating and the prep that goes into it, yet you're just touching down a couple of hours before. That shows you the lack of preparation, the lack of seriousness. I mean, who would ever do that? Just shows you how he's doing things on the fly. And I think he's obviously afraid to debate again. He knows he will never put in the prep work. He knows he lost. He knows he doesn't want to be humiliated again. And I think this is going to work against him. I really, really do. If I'm Kamala Harris, I just keep beating this to a drum. He will not debate again. He's afraid. He's running.
And then there's Jeremy Peters, who's coming after us. Wah, wah. In your new piece, Jeremy, entitled Pundits Said Harris Won the Debate, undecided voters weren't so sure. And you write in part this. In interviews with undecided voters, many of whom The Times has interviewed regularly over the last several months, they acknowledged that Ms. Harris seemed more presidential than Mr. Trump. And they said she laid out a sweeping vision to fix some of the country's most stubborn problems. But they also said she did not seem much different from Mr. Biden, and they wanted change. And most of all, what they wanted to hear and didn't was the fine print. Voters said they were glad she has a tax and economic plan, but they want to know how it will become law when Washington is so polarized. They know she wants to give assistance to first-time home buyers, but doubted that it was realistic. And Jeremy, I ask you, is their answer Donald Trump? Because I guess I see the questions. I think there was only so much that she could do in that debate in order to be as effective as she was. And I agree. There are a lot more questions. Of course, I would love to ask Kamala Harris about her leadership style and her plans and how she plans to execute. But are those undecided voters saying, I'm going to kind of lean Trump here because I want change? I don't get it.
No, I don't think that a lot of them are saying they're leaning Trump. Some of them certainly would, but I think the bigger risk for her is that they're just going to stay home, that they're not motivated, inspired enough by her. Because remember, people don't really know her. You know, as we've quoted many voters saying, and many Democratic strategists saying, she's famous as vice president. Of course, she has very high name recognition, but she's largely unknown as a candidate and a politician. I mean, she was elected to the United States Senate in 2018. She's hardly, been on the national stage for a long time. And she has had, let's not forget, a really truncated campaign period to introduce herself to voters. That's what the next 8 weeks are all about. And something, Mika, you point out is very correct. You can't do in 2-minute answers in a debate. So there's not going to be another debate, it looks like. In a way, I think that's almost good for her campaign because they can continue to introduce her to the voters who still need convincing on their own terms in these large rallies, in these controlled settings. I think she's going to eventually have to do some more interviews. You know, she's only done the one so far. And, you know, but there's 8 weeks, and that's an awful lot of time to convince people. There's a sliver of people, really, that need convincing, need motivating, and that's not unthinkable or undoable for her. But this is still a very close race, and despite the fact that Trump clearly lost the room on Tuesday night, she still, whether the question of whether or not she won in the minds of the people who are not really yet decided is an open one.
Morning Joe Weekend. We'll be right back.
Trains. Trains that use the power of Dell AI and Intel, clearing the way so you arrive exactly where you belong.
From this can't miss moment, to this hello new grandpa moment, to that whatever this is moment. Your moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older, or 60 or older with certain chronic conditions, you're at higher risk of being hospitalized from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. You have options. Ask your doctor about Pfizer's RSV vaccine. Because moments like these matter.
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like life was moving on without me. Then I found a chance to let in the light.
Discover Caplyta. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta is proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Caplyta can cause serious side effects. Call your doctor about sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks in young adults. Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Report fever, confusion, or stiff muscles which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements which may be permanent. Common side effects include sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, and dry mouth. These aren't all the side effects.
In the darkness of bipolar 1 and 2 depression, Caplyta can help you let in the light. Ask your doctor about Caplyta. Find savings and support at Caplyta.com.
They say we should stop eating so much meat. So we made meat out of plants. Because we aren't quitters. Impossible. We're solving the meat problem with more meat.
With Chime, I can get paid when I want. I couldn't believe it. I can get up to $500 of my pay on my schedule. There's no interest, no credit checks, no mandatory fees. And that's why I Chime. Join me at Chime.com and get paid when you say.
I was seeing this bra all over my Instagram feed. I'm sure you're seeing it too.
This is the most comfortable bra I've ever put on in my life. I love it because, one, it's not underwire. I hate underwire. It smooths out your back. It doesn't give you back fat or back rolls. And you can wear this under a t-shirt and it wouldn't leave any marks or bulges. So not only is it super supportive, lifting and smoothing, but you have all that without an underwire, without a ton of padding.
If you're looking at this and it's available, I promise you won't regret it.
Try risk-free. Free returns on all orders.
Why do we accept waiting 2 weeks for payday? Thanks to Chime, I don't have to wait to get paid anymore. I couldn't believe it. I can get up to $500 of my pay on my schedule. There's no interest, no credit checks, no mandatory fees. Join me at Chime.com and get paid when you say.
Vice President Kamala Harris is riding a wave of momentum.
It's challenging to understand how he is supposed to appeal to a general election electorate.
There are people that want what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are selling.
Don't miss the weekend, Saturday and Sunday mornings at 8
on MSNBC.
I'm putting together a party for some of the biggest gangsters in the country. This here is going to be a night that we never going to forget. Groovy, baby.
Welcome back to Morning Joe Weekend. Let's pick back up on the conversation we were just having before the break. So what's actually interesting here is that with so little time, Donnie, your expertise is really, it's actually relevant to this conversation because it's going to be about branding really fast and furious, and it's going to be about honest branding. And I mean, if I were the Harris campaign, and I'm going to ask you if you agree with this or if you have a better idea, I would be focused on the contrast, hate, retribution, anti-democratic values, racism, and all the facts to back that up. Literally, you could have a sub-paragraph under each of those that went on for pages because he served as president and he tried to do a lot of things that were incredibly destructive, and he was successful in many ways, January 6th. And he wants to pardon them. And then the contrast is, okay, you don't know me that well. Lawyer, prosecutor, attorney general, state of California, senator, vice president. These are the jobs Kamala Harris held. So doesn't that right there show a contrast that brands them very differently?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't have anything much wiser to say other than I would put a banner on top of that. It's all about contrast, but start the contrast with yesterday and tomorrow. Hope versus despair, sadness versus joy, old news versus new news. That's to be the main contrast. All those other talking points, not talking points, facts that you put in there go underneath it. But it still starts with the candidate that owns change, the candidate that owns hope wins. I think it's very, very hard for him to sell anything about change or anything about hope because of who he is and what he stands for. She, on the other hand, and what he should have done at the debate, Trump, is really attach her to Biden, because then she can't own hope and change. He didn't do that until his closing statement. So your point about contrast, absolutely, but start it with hope versus despair. Start it with tomorrow versus yesterday.
Molly, your latest opinion piece for MSNBC.com is entitled Trump's Routine Sexism Came Back to Bite Him During the Debate. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was really interesting. He tried to use her phrase. So remember during the Mike Pence debate, she said, "I'm speaking," when Pence interrupted her, which was sort of became a kind of catchphrase, a little bit iconic. Pretty big thing to come out of a vice presidential debate. So Trump tried to do it to her. But the problem for Trump was that women relate to, and again, I'm sorry, guys, but women relate to being interrupted, and men don't necessarily do that. So when he said that, powerful guy who's been, you know, quite famous for many, many years, it didn't have the same resonance. And he did that a bunch of times where he tried to flip the script on her, but in fact, it helped her, and she was able to flip the script on him. I don't know how she did it. Live television, as we all know here, is very hard. And to be able to provide, she was able to do a little bit of real-time fact-checking, too, which I thought was really amazing. She had to do so many things. It was really like a Ginger Rogers dancing, you know, backwards in heels kind of thing.
Well, there was one.
Porsche. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mika, something that I don't think has gotten enough attention was the line that she used about Trump being confused. Remember, she went